Hi, good evening. I'm old enough to remember in 1979, a certain Mr. James Callaghan saying at this election that he smelt a sea change in the body politic, which actually led to 40 years of a consensus of neoliberalism, I believe it's called. And I just wonder if you feel, as some commentators do, that we may be entering another sea change where it is possible to speak about socialism without getting bananas thrown at you, or do we really believe this could be the start of something new? I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement.
No, I agree with you, but I'll let Annalise go with this one if you like.
I sure agree. Well, I suppose two comments. One would be a slightly cautionary one, which is that I've found myself not always great at capturing the zeitgeist of different moments, because, around the European referendum in particular, I felt for a long time we were definitely going to lose that referendum because of the doorstep work that I was doing around the southeast. But then there was one cataclysmic event, horrible event, obviously the death of Joe Cox, which seemed to change, I thought, the public's perception of politics. It seemed to me, to bring people together, and I thought that might lead to a change of result, and of course it didn't. It made no difference at all. And actually the papers that said that it did were wrong. They're pulled up then by the statisticians for using polls that were taken before that event happened. So I think it's very difficult to grasp when there is that change. It does feel to me, it certainly felt to me that the new activism that happened around this election did feel quite new. Having been a parliamentary candidate, first time in 2005, getting hammered every time in the European elections, only winning 1 out of the 10 when we'd hoped to win 2, then losing the referendum. Suddenly it felt like we were in a better place. That did feel different. And lots of new people coming into the party felt different. But I think we've got to be careful about hubris. We really have to watch out for that. And we can make our own luck, I think, but we can also turn the tide the wrong way if we take people for granted, which is why I think particularly with these young people, we need to keep them close to us. We need to keep working with them and showing that we're listening to them. Is there a change there? I do agree with what Sarah said on this, actually. I think that certainly Theresa May's alteration of her policy, it was done for purely tactical reasons on her part. She thought she could pull a load of northern Labour seats back to the Tories, I think, by adopting, language around industrial policy and that kind of thing. But it does mean that it's now difficult for her to roll back from that. So I think that Sarah's right. We have seen a bit of a shift in, the centre of politics now, away from the right and towards a more centrist position. But whether we can keep that up is an important question, particularly if we have a change in the Tory leadership towards a real strong right, well, I say strong in terms of his politics, not necessarily his personality, like Boris Johnson, somebody like that, who, is really quite extreme in some of his views. That would be quite a worrying situation. But I don't know how you feel about this.
Well, I was actually reading about this very question of the day, and intellectually it's very interesting, and I think you do have to be careful about how these things play out on the ground. 18 months ago, I asked a question at a Fabian conference. I asked a panel, do we think that the politics has transcended the left-right divide? And they all looked at me and passed the question to the person at the end. And then we had the rise of UKIP and the EU referendum, which did transcend the left-right divide, because the people were asked a question they interpreted to do with their daily life. I think the question was wrong and the whole thing was set up very badly, but that's sort of another point. But the point was you couldn't look at the polarisation of that result through the left-right lens. And in some ways, you can't look at the polarisation of this particular election result through a left-right lens. Some people have come to what I think that our policy is on the left, and I said that the left is on the left now because it is a remodelled social democratic agenda for the 21st century, which is why everyone likes it so much. But more to the point, it is relevant to young people. I had someone come up to me and say, I've always been a Tory voter, but I like that we must nationalise the railways. So we're speaking, I don't necessarily think we've captured the zeitgeist. I think we might have we've done it somehow in certain ways, but we need to understand what we've done right in order to keep doing it right. And I don't know that we're there yet, which is why left-right still exists. But people are shifting all over the landscape because they're not really sure where they're supposed to be anymore. So I do think neoliberalism had its day in 2008. It's taken us nearly 10 years to realise that, and we're still working within the context of the death throes of that kind of thing. But we're not losing capitalism quite yet. I don't think we can go so far as to say that. But we are entering something new, but I don't think we've understood quite what it looks like.